Greetings, everyone, and welcome. My name is Judd Hendricks, and I'm the Executive Director of Interfaith Paths to Peace. And I want to welcome you to our Thursday afternoon LouLab. This is a weekly conversation that we have concerning connecting and collaborating and creating change. And I can't tell you how excited I am about our panel today. We are going to be having a conversation on the experience of young Black men in Louisville. The idea behind the conversation is just for us to have a chance to listen to stories and to hear people's experiences. Interfaith Paths to Peace is committed to bringing our community together simply to hear each other and to listen to each other and to understand our experiences, especially experiences that may be different from ours. So I'm really excited. We have a really amazing panel. And as you'll see, if you're looking at the screen now, we've got just a huge group of people on Zoom. Some of them are panelists. Some of them are just joining in on the conversation. So I do want to, those of you that are joining us on Facebook as well, I want to welcome you. And if you're joining us on Facebook, you're welcome to put a comment in the comment box, and we will bring that into our conversation as we go. And again, those of you that are on Zoom, we'll invite you to unmute yourself and ask a question as you may have them. I want to specifically say a word of thanks to Richard Whitlock, who's going to be on the conversation, and also Nikki Thornton. Nikki is with True Up, and Richard Whitlock is with GAP, and actually a variety of other kind of organizations. And they really pulled this together. So Nikki and Richard, a deep bow to you. Thank you for making connections and pulling this together. So I want to briefly introduce, we've got a really amazing panel of folks that have come to share their story and experience. Imran Abdul Rahman, Elton Dawson, LaFerry Mitchell, and then also a variety of other folks that are working in organizations that specifically work with young men, Shavi Shabazz, William Pennebaker, and also Dr. Eddie Woods with No More Red Dots. Dr. Woods is with that organization. And so I'm going to have them introduce themselves, and especially Imran, Elton, LaFerry, and I would like to invite you all to introduce yourself, and also if you would share kind of in your introduction, how would you summarize your experience of being a Black man in Louisville? So like what would be a summary, if you can introduce yourself and share in two or 3 minutes, tell a little bit about yourself, and then if you wouldn't mind sharing, what would be a summary of your experience so far as a Black man in Louisville? So we'll jump in and begin that way. Again, if you have a question that you would like to ask these young men, feel free to put that in the chat box. Imran, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind unmuting yourself and introducing yourself a little bit, and then kind of sharing in a few minutes summary of your experience of being a young Black man in Louisville. Thanks for being with us, Imran.
Hey, Judd, what's up?
What's
up?
Hey,
everybody, my name is Imran. I'm 22 years old. I've been in Louisville my whole life. I haven't gone to school here. I went to school in Western Kentucky. My experience with being an African American in Louisville, I don't know if we're gonna get into any questions or anything, but I would just say that there are a lot of stereotypes that I would say I run into, and profiles that when I go out in public. But other than that, I'd say I feel like a regular person here in Louisville, you know?
Thanks, Imran. And yeah, we're going to get into some more specific questions, but thanks for being on. Elton, would you mind I appreciate you being on today, and would you mind introducing yourself?
Not at all. Hi, everyone. I'm Elton Dawson. I'm 25 years old. I've been in Louisville for about 12 years, maybe a little bit over that. Racism in this city has impacted me. I've had my run-ins with the police and just faced injustice like many other young Black men my age, and there's just a lot of unfortunate things that continue to happen to young Black men my age, and just young Black men and Black men in general, Black people in general. I really wanted to start off talking about justice for Breonna Taylor, because that's exactly what we need. And that'll bring a lot of peace if people would just open their eyes to some form of love. It's hard for me to speak on my experience in Louisville without sounding different, because I am going to be different, and I am different, and I'm from Charlotte, and it's different from Louisville. And I don't want to offend anyone, but there's a lot that we can do differently. There's a lot of opportunity right now, a lot of learning opportunity for us to really be more preventative than try to aid after the fact. And there's just too much trying to aid after the fact, and we just need to, we're this smart, so why not use these intelligences and these strategic teams that we have to be more preventative than, again, aid after the fact.
Thanks, Elton, and we'll get into some more of the specifics of what you're talking about here in a moment. LaFerry, Mitchell, would you mind introducing yourself to us and unmuting? Thank you for being on the call today. Appreciate it.
My name is LaFerry Mitchell, and I'm from Louisville. But to say the least, I would say that being in Louisville and being a young Black man in Louisville, that I would say that it's demanding. It is definitely demanding, and more than ever, it seems like lately.
Thanks, LaFerry. I appreciate you giving us some of your time and sharing some of your story. I do want to have our other kind of conversation partners, some who have been Black men in Louisville, but are also working with organizations. And so, Richard, would you mind starting that off, introducing yourself a little bit more? Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Richard Whitlock. I'm 37 years old now. And the way I would summarize being, I'm not a young Black man anymore, but when I started in the community, I was a young Black man. I was 27. I've been involved in the community for like 11 years now. And I don't know 11 white people. And I've been involved in the community for 11 years, and I do not know 11 white people. So to sum it up, for what I would say is I would definitely talk about cultural segregation. And not only just do you have this cultural segregation that leads to trauma. That definitely leads to trauma. And, you know, when the other men get to speak that work with young boys, we spend most of our time dealing with trauma as people, as an individual. We spend a tremendous amount of time dealing with trauma. And I'm not going to say all that trauma is caused by racism and all that trauma is caused by discrimination, but a lot of it is. A lot of it is. I don't want to sit here and blame everything on these devils and these demons, but they play a huge role when it comes to cultural segregation, and it's to the point where in the courtroom, there's a case that's called, there's a defense that's called cultural insanity. And Dr. Eddie Woods will attest to this as well. A lot of the young men that end up in the court system are really victims of cultural insanity. They thought and believed they was doing the right thing at the time they were committing their crimes. They unaware of the law. And those are the challenges that we have. The challenge of the physical law, the challenge of the physical law, the spiritual law, and then the actual law. And where I sum it up is the Bible says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken or begging for bread. And in this city, I have seen the righteous forsaken, and I have seen the righteous begging for bread.
Thanks so much. And thanks for helping pull this panel together, Richard. I really appreciate that. Dr. Woods, since Richard mentioned, you mind introducing yourself and unmuting yourself and share a little bit about No More Red Dots, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for having me. When you get to be my age, you like to be anywhere. Helps out a lot, you know. But we actually started doing the work that became No More Red Dots back in the early 90s. I've been blessed in my life to have a lot of folks around me who taught me stuff, things that I could use, and I adapted into the programming that I do. No More Red Dots primarily is set up to do gun violence intervention. And the way we try to do it is something that we call risk reduction. And what that involves is us trying to get the individuals who are involved in gunplay and impacted by it to understand those things that are keeping them in the situations that they're in and how they can negotiate some of that. We used to do a lot of referring out, and that wasn't really working well when people were having to go to other agencies and organizations for services. So we started to create some of our own programming so that we could kind of do a little better hands-on, and we can talk more about that at another time. But primarily, at this point in time, we have 10 people who are committed and work primarily as volunteers because they have to have day jobs and what have you. So we do a lot of juggling. And the way it works is that we'll get a notification on a shooting. Almost every shooting that happens in Louisville that the police get notification on, we get it just about the same time, if not before. Sometimes before, because the individuals in the community will let us know something's going down. I've always kind of felt like, you know, and I've been a black man in Louisville since I was born. That's kind of how it works, and that probably dates me some since I'm prehistoric. But at the same time, it's been an evolution, evolving kind of a thing. But what I try to get our young people, particularly our young men who seem to be the targets almost all the time, they have to develop a sense of purpose that allows them to embrace those things around them that's holding them back a little bit, so that they can figure out how it is that they can play past it, learn from it, and or get the resources and individuals in their life that they need to change what they do. And the sense of purpose is huge, because otherwise you're floundering. You're just out here doing something. And we try to teach them not to just get help because it's there. Get help that applies to what it is that you're trying to get done or what you're trying to do. One of the biggest pluses I see in our community is our growing diversity. If you think it's not good now, you should have been around in the 80s and 90s when it was not really good at all. But if you didn't notice it, you didn't notice it. We started out doing our work in the projects. There were 6 projects in Louisville at the time. That was around 1991 or so. It was just myself and another guy, you know, a guy named Dwayne Campbell. And we just engaged groups and talked to them about the different things that they could be doing instead of what they were doing. And in essence, trying to save lives. So we've been doing it that way, long and short of it, ever since. we've got a lot of different things that we do in terms of programs. I'll give you a quick list of that, and then we'll let somebody else talk. But we do something called the Peace League, the Peace Basketball League, when we can do it. And we're kind of shaping up for a big start when it happens. It's set up on an NBA format that allows individuals who might have been shooting at each other or in conflict with each other to play on the same team through being drafted by coaches. We do something called Peace Through Fashion for young ladies primarily, but young men as well who want to try to get into the world of fashion. We got something called the Peace Press that we teach silk screening and printing, and part of the whole thing that makes that unique is that we teach contract writing, how to read a contract, how to do marketing, how to go after the business, and then how to do banking and those kind of things through that program. We got another program called Hugs, and this is for people to share who've been impacted by gun violence. And then learning loss prevention. The learning loss prevention kind of adjoins our mentorship program. Almost every kid that we get through the different systems, DJJ and some of the other systems, get a mentor, get a 24/7 mentor, someone to help them kind of redirect their life. But the learning loss prevention is for those kids who get suspended from school, and usually after 5 or 10 days or whatever they're suspended for, they go back and they're at a deficit because no one has kind of kept them up to snuff. Nobody's gotten to work for them. So we're working with JCPS now to get an opportunity to work with those kids and keep them from falling too far behind while we work on the court stuff and all of that.
Dr. Woods, thanks so much. Red Dot's been doing really great programming. I appreciate your vision and energy around that. We'll have a chance to come back to that some in a minute. Thank you. William Pennebaker, you mind unmuting yourself and joining in the conversation, introducing yourself?
Thank you for having me. My name is William Pennebaker. I'm getting ready to be 30 years old in a couple of weeks. And my experience in Louisville has, I've seen the best of both worlds. When I look at it, I've lost some friends due to gun violence. Some friends are locked up, and then I have other friends who are living, are doing, they are prospering. I think it's opportunity here, but I think that majority of our brothers and sisters, they need to be put in like a whole unlearn and relearn type of program. We have like a sickness, and this sickness is psychological, and I feel like we need to set up a program, like a re-education program. And when we do this re-education, we need to just tell the truth. We need to reveal our history, our true history. I agree with Brother Eddie Woods when he said that these young brothers need to find a purpose. Well, if they realize that, there were plenty of prosperous scientists that look like them, if they knew that there were Black doctors, Black, entrepreneurs, we always see the bad side, but we never see successful, a Black man is responsible for the blood transplant. We never hear these things. And I would say that we need to make education a cool thing. We have to be honest. In our culture, majority of the time, we don't look at education as something that's cool. We don't want to associate with the person who is into the books, with the brothers who run the streets, and that's because they don't see the importance of education, and Malcolm was somebody that we should never follow. And then just me finding Malcolm X and learning about him, it changed my life. because I saw how Malcolm X ran the streets. I saw how Malcolm X was, he done everything that these dudes are doing right now. And then he came out of that, out of prison and everything, and he ended up being Malcolm X. But I feel like a lot of these brothers, they could just, like brother said, get that sense of purpose. Know that they can be as the young brothers and sisters that are good in basketball and entertaining. They deserve praise, but I feel like that the star student deserves just as much praise as the star athlete. And that goes a lot for the schools too, because the schools, they worry more about their basketball team and football team. They worried about their team wearing Jordans, and they worried about their teams looking nice and pretty. They throw the big prep rallies and go all out for the football and basketball team. But you might have one of the smartest students in the state. You might have one of the smartest students in the nation in your school, and nobody in the school knows about this kid, So I feel like that we really need to, make education a cool thing and let these young boys know that, you can do something besides being a basketball player, football player, not take away from dreams. If it's meant for you, it's meant for you. But but that comes with hard work too. But we have to let our young brothers and sisters know that they can be doctors, scientists, teachers, and entrepreneurs, engineers, architects, science, everything. We need them. And we built up colleges, and we had our own neighborhoods, we had our own businesses, and we basically were fluent in our own community. When we put our foot down and got into the books, educated ourselves. We can move along. We can move so far if we just educate ourselves and understand the importance of education. So yes, that's my intake on it. I just want to start like an unlearn and relearn process, and let these young boys know that they can be this. And let me say one more thing.
Please.
Jawanza Kanjufu, who was the author of The Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. He says, you have 1 million black boys that want to go to the NBA. And out of that 1 million black boys, 400,000 of them go on to play high school basketball. Out of that 400,000, only 40,000 of them go on to play college basketball. Now that 40,000, only 35 get drafted in the NBA, and only 7 of them start. And the average life expectancy of a NBA player is only 4 years. So you have 1 million black boys chasing 7 full-time jobs. And these jobs, architects, scientists, doctors, these young boys know that these jobs can also save your mom. You can also pull your family up. If you want to be an architect or a doctor, you can also pull your family up doing these things too. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
William, thank you. Yeah, we'll have a chance for you to share some more. I appreciate your articulation of that. I do want to bring some other people that are on the call into Greg Powell. Would you mind introducing yourself and sharing a little bit of your story? Greg's on here.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. What's up,
Yeah.
Greg?
How you doing, Dr. Eddie Woods?
All right.
It's good. Well, my name is Gregory Powell, and I'm a case manager for Pivot to Peace / Peace Education. And I've been, I was incarcerated for like 18 years, and I've been out now 13 years. And ever since I've been out of prison, I've been working with young men. And I started actually inside prison doing it, because I seen what was going on in my community where I grew up and where I was raised, and I really wanted to make a difference. So I started a program when I was in prison called the Outreach Program, and I was the first guy that they ever took outside of prison into schools and community centers and job corps, and they was taking me in there to speak to these young men about my life. So when I got out of prison 13 years ago, I started doing it on my own. I just formed a program called Outreach, and I was going into these schools volunteering. And it was people that I was meeting was telling me, you know, Greg, you can get paid for what you're doing. You're doing this for free. But it was never about the money with me. It was never, I didn't even care if I never got a dime for it, even though some people did give me stipends and gave me money and this and that, but it was never, ever about the money for me. And right now, today, it's not about the money for me. If I wasn't getting paid one dime for what I'm doing right now today, I still would do it, because when I look at myself and I look at my life, when I look at little Michael, I look at little Durrell, little Tony, I was once them. I was once a little Durrell, little Tony, because ever since I was 9 years old, I was in and out of juvenile institutions, in and out of JCYC, in and out of jail, prison. You know, I'm a two-time loser in prison. So I really wanted to make a difference. And I share my story with these young men when I speak, because I don't want them to travel down that road that I had to travel down, because it's a real, real, real dark road at the end. These young people don't understand that. And it's a hard hole to try to climb out of. And I'm just doing it, and every time I speak, I think about Master P, because he talks, and it's like me and his story is almost similar, because like he always say, he's the chosen one. And that's how I feel about myself, because when I think about my life and I think about what I've been through in my life, and I'm still living and I'm still here to speak about it and talk about it, because there's a whole lot of my friends, they don't get this chance and opportunity because they already dead and gone. Just like a lot of my friends who's in penitentiary with double life, 300 and 400 years, they would never get this chance and this opportunity again. And for me to be able to come from 75 years in prison with 37 and a half years to go to the parole board when I was incarcerated, and now I'm on the street, I'm still supposed to be sitting in prison right now with 11 more years to go. So you tell me how I got out here. I didn't have no money to get out. I didn't no judge sorry for me, no prosecutor still let him out. But I worked hard while I was in prison. I got my GED while I was in there. I got 3 vocational trades. I got 2 college degrees while I was in there. I worked hard because I knew the only way that I could convince the authorities to let me out of prison was to show that I was a changed man, that I wasn't the same Gregory that I was that you brought in this prison 18 years ago. And that's the same thing that I try to tell the young men out here that's living their life on the edge. You got to work and show people that you're making a difference and you're making changes in your life. That's the only way that you're going to be able to convince a judge or a prosecutor or a police that you're not that same person that you was. And until these young men get that and understand that, and they begin to change their life, and they go to school and get their GED, and they work through programs, intervention programs, and stuff like this to show that they are making a difference, then somebody is going to see the changes that they're making in themselves, and they'll give them a chance like I was given a chance. Because, Lord knows, man, I should have been dead a long time ago, and I still be sitting in prison right now. But I always say, it's through the grace of God that I can sit here and talk and tell my story right now to the day.
Greg, thanks so much for sharing your story and the wisdom and inspiration that comes from that story. I want to ask a specific question, and I do want to go back to some of our panelists that are younger. So the question is, what assumptions or stereotypes do you feel people in our community hold of Black men or of you that's hurtful and inaccurate? So what kind of assumptions or stereotypes do you sense people put on you that doesn't feel helpful or inadequate? And Imran or Elton, LaFerry, either 3 of you want to jump in on that question? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to, just unmute yourself and jump in.
Can you tell me the question again?
What kind of assumptions or stereotypes do you feel like people in our community hold against young Black men that are both hurtful and inaccurate?
I would say the assumption and the expectation that that we're aggressive and violent because it makes everybody else feel uncomfortable, but knowing somebody else is uncomfortable because they thinking something that they don't know yet, you know what I'm saying? Then that is one thing that would it'll make you uncomfortable as a black man. Like, and it's not fair, obviously, but it's also unsettling because throughout history we've seen how people act, you know, when it comes to acting out of fear.
Mm.
And so, I mean, as far as everything else, it all falls in the same category, like down to people either trying to negate a movement like the whole Black Lives Matter movement and stuff like that, and people who don't understand and people who don't want to understand, they have that same fear, but that same fear has fueled a lot of hatred and a lot of negative energy that has been put toward black men, creating many different stigmas that hurt us, like mentally, physically, and just stuff like that. So I would definitely say it's like a big impact.
Yeah. Thank you. Imran,
Yeah.
how about you? And Imran, I gotta say, Imran grew up with my kids and has been a friend a long time. And so Imran, thanks for being on. And yeah, what
I got you.
yeah.
Some stereotypes, I will say, that
Yeah.
I've seen. I noticed that a lot of times African Americans, if somebody who's black has dreads or long hair, it's seen as unprofessional in the Louisville community. Uh, and that's something that I talked to my brother about because he has dreads, my little brother, and he said that that's an issue that he was facing is people not taking him seriously or professionally seriously because of his long hair.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I talked to a few of my friends that I go to the gym with is a lot of people assume that black people are on some kind of drug or they're high or something when they see them in the Louisville community, or they're in a gang or. And something that I wanted to just talk about was when you're black, a lot of times people will stereotype you as poor and not I don't know, I just not as equal. It seems more like the cadence comes off as they're talking down to you or trying to give you advice.
Yeah. Thanks, Imran. Elton, how about you? What do you sense are stereotypes, assumptions people make with young black men?
I just want to speak more to Imran's point. I hate when people come at me as if I'm dumb. No, I'm not dumb at all, actually. And I'm very creative. I'm very athletic. Like all these things that a black man can be, and you treat me as if any of that doesn't matter or it's not useful or you're better than I am. Those are the stereotypes that I feel like I encounter the most.
Thanks, Elton. And you are smart. You are very bright. So always enjoy my conversations with you.
Thank you, Joe.
Let's I really want to keep centering the black voices here. So any other we've got several
I'd like to chime in.
Yeah, please.
Because like I said, I'm 37 years old now, but I wasn't always 37, right? I remember first being involved in the community at the tender age of 27. That's when I made the Louisville Peace Project. That's what I made the first GAP program. These programs, most people haven't seen them, but they're brilliant programs. These things are brilliant programs. They're not brilliant just because I made them. And people, I didn't always do the right thing. I don't have a college degree, but what I know better than anybody is our community. And I don't mean better than anybody in the world. What I mean by it, to the people that say, hey, we're interested in West Louisville. I know this. I know this. I know these people here. And that's what it's like being a young black man, being a young black man in this city. People act like you can't know anything. You can't do anything positive. It's like you can't be nobody. In a place called Possibility City, it seemed like it's impossible for us. In a place that's considered a compassionate city, we don't get any empathy. We don't get the benefit of the doubt. And the reason why I think this conversation is so important, Judd and everyone else that's listening, it seems like there's two cities. There's a city that's being promoted and marketed to white Louisville, and then there's the other city, that Black Louisville, we just get to see other people live. We get to see other people live while the people we know suffer and die for the most. And say, hey, you know, this is like I told you before, Judd. You feel like Moses. You feel like a alien in a foreign land.
Yeah, thank you. There was a
Mr. Judd.
Really good.
Hello.
Yes, please.
I know. I'm not a panelist.
No, but you are. You're jump in.
And I apologize about my attire. I'm Demarian Fleming. I was taking kids to college today, and some of the kids live on the 3rd and 4th floor, so we've been doing a lot of moving to get kids settled in and back to their new normals. So I apologize, but I did want to speak, man. I would be remiss. My name is Demarian Fleming. I'm the executive founder and director of Sowing Seeds with Faith, which is an out-of-school academic enrichment program. I am the largest out-of-school enrichment program in West Louisville over the last 3 years. I'm from Louisville, born and raised, Male High School, went to Tennessee State University, undergrad from U of L, so on and so forth. Worked in the school system for 3 years, but in the 3 years I was in the school system, I understood that the school system was not broken, but it was designed to help who was designed. And unfortunately, that's not boys of color and women of color. So I decided to step away from the school system and start an organization that spreads the same academic perpetuation of agenda of success throughout the city by sowing seeds in youth and letting them take those seeds back to their academic institutions and letting them perpetuate what they've learned over the summer in their tutoring and in our mentoring program. And it's worked. And Mr. Whitlock, I met Mr. Whitlock a couple years ago, man, when I was first starting. And I hear his voice. I hear what he's saying. I've been hearing him for a while. But I do want to say that it may seem like two worlds. But I think if you navigate the world that you know adequately, the other world has to open up. And I say that because as a young protege of Kenny Boyd and Gregory Powell, who's opened doors for me personally and professionally, has allowed me to get in spaces that I had no business being in. And when I got in those spaces, I was able to navigate certain individuals. And I think we had to teach them, and Mr. Boyd taught me, that when you go in these spaces, you don't ask them to fund your program, you ask them to fund you as a person. You know, and once they know what kind of person you are, they can't deny you. You can't be denied, and it's biblical. It says it does say that the door is open, that the door has been open. We just got to walk through them. And I think you got to use the people that are on this platform to go, who's already been it, who walk back and forth through those doors and use those doors. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying, I've been in some very fortunate situations, and Mr. Clack, look, they can speak to that in the spaces that I've been, afforded. But I never sold my soul. I stay level-headed. I stay humble. I operate with a level of integrity, and I'm all about the youth. And Mr. Whitlock is about, the adults. But I feel like I got to sow seeds to the impressionable minds of those that are 13 and under, and water those seeds for 4 to 5 years, that we're not repeating a Breonna Taylor situation, and that we educate our kids on rights and policies and procedures. So I'm not saying that white privilege does not dominate, because it does. But I've been a strong believer that Black privilege does exist. And Mr. Greg will tell you, and Mr. Kenny Boyd will tell you, and LaVon will tell you, and Shabazz will tell you that Black privilege was those that came before me who opened up doors that I took advantage of, and then I opened up houses, and I opened up platforms that I want everybody that's trying to win to win. I think one of the stereotypes that hasn't been discussed is the crab in the barrel bucket that we have in our community. It's a stereotype, but it does have some truth. Is that people try to infiltrate and find ways to demean everything that you've built because they just don't understand, and everybody has their own agenda. But the minute and the very, very second that all of us can sit down and get on one agenda at one table, that's powerful. That cannot be denied. That agenda will reign over any city, any state, and out of all 50. But I think everybody's trying to perpetuate their own agenda, saying, man, how can I collaborate? How can I get with this brother to understand what he's doing, to see how that works and what I got going on? I think that's one of the biggest conflicts. And it's not because people don't want to collaborate. Sometimes you don't know who exists or who to collaborate with. So platforms like what you have presented allows us to kind of sit here and say, okay, well, this brother's doing this and this brother's doing this, and they're young, and I'm 32. And I've been doing this for over 7, 8 years. But now I know these young brothers exist who are adamant and passionate about making a difference. Now we can reach out to them and say, let's get them to sit at our table to bring them to some of the spaces that we in. And I speak from a place where just 2 years ago, my program only had, $14,000. And in over 2 years during a pandemic, we now are over $250,000 through a pandemic. So that goes to show you that it's out there, it's available. We just have to work together to get there.
Thank you, Demarian. I appreciate your those reflections. Britt, I want to bring in your question. I thought, you mind unmuting yourself, Britt, and asking your question? Because there's some conversation about education here, and I thought your question was nice.
I apologize. There's a lot of background noise in my house. Thank you so much for all of the panelists for sharing your insights. It's been so great. I really am interested to learn from you. I'm a teacher at JCTC. I'm a math teacher, and I'd be really interested to hear what advice you'd have for me about creating a classroom environment where young Black men and young Black women feel comfortable, safe, nurtured, and supported, and they're able to thrive in their education.
So anybody jump in, and I know we've got Kenny Boyd on. If you want to, anybody that wants to kind of reflect on that question, please do.
I would like to. That's fine.
Please, William.
I would say, try to make like education like fun.
Oh, William got muted there. I'm sorry. There you go.
Turn like the curriculum into a game and break up the classroom into teams. One team over here can be the Lakers. One team over here could be the 76ers. One team over here, the kids feel like that like everything's a competition. They're on a team. Make education fun. Make it a competition. Reward the kids so they get they might get a Snicker bar or something. Give something to the winning team. We always watch sports. When the championship team wins, they get a trophy. Well, we could do the same thing with education. Just turn the curriculum into a game. Break them up into teams, and turn it into a competition. Whichever team wins, give them something.
Thanks, William. Anybody else want to reflect on that?
I want to chime in. One thing you don't do is you don't assume that kids know anything, and don't assume they don't know nothing. To create a culture where
Demarian, we're having some trouble hearing you. I think you're breaking up on the call.
So spend your first classes, be transparent. Understand that. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
I said 1, don't assume. 2, create a culture about better relationships. And 3, be transparent that everybody doesn't learn the same.
Thank you. Kenny, you had your hand up. Would you like to jump in on the conversation, please? You can unmute yourself. Oh, did Kenny? I think Kenny may have gone off. To that question about education, anybody else have some thoughts or comments you'd like to make?
What I like to share to everyone, I remember the first story I heard about a black man in school, and it was John Henry. I remember hearing this story, and after finishing the story, how heartbroken I was. It was the first time I heard a story about a black man as a mythological story. I was in the 5th grade, and then to find out that he beat the machine and then he died, I was like, this is a terrible story. You know, this story is not a great story, right? So just, and it's just the cultural sensitivity of it. Like I never forget that in a school in the 5th grade at Carter Elementary. I never forget hearing the John Henry story. The first time slavery was mentioned was also in that classroom in the 5th grade. I never forget the way I looked at my white fellow students after that. Those things are things that, you know, before those days, I wasn't even black. I was just a student. And, you know, like people say, hey, what can we do for black students? What can we do for black males and black female students? Our history has to be embedded in the curriculum. When you get anytime there's an opportunity to teach some black history, it needs to be taught to both black and white students so we can all acknowledge our contributions. Because if you just wait on black history, and I actually ask seniors in JCPS, I tell them to name me 12, they've been in school 12 years, name me 12 black people that you learned about in textbooks. Tell me 12 black people that you learned about in textbooks in your 12 years in high school, and they can't name 12 black people because 12, you can go to school at JCPS for 12 years and not learn about 12 black people in the textbooks. That's a serious challenge to those that are interested in themselves. And then when you get to high school, when you get to high school, it's like Europe and America is the only countries that exist. I was always interested in Chinese culture. I never forget those statues that they showed. I know a whole lot about the Louvre. I always dreamed of going to Europe as a youth because I was always taught about Europe. And those kind of things, and that'll be a monocultural education. And that's what our students are getting. They're getting a monoculture, and just like Mr. Fleming, and especially myself, we're trying to make sure that African Americans are not left out of the curriculum of life. So in these after school programs and even in our curriculum, maybe JCPS doesn't need to change that. Just what we're doing in the community needs to be adopted a whole lot more. And that's where so it's not really saying, hey, JCPS should change their curriculum, but what we're doing in our after school programs is we're actually trying to make sure that monoculture education is mono in our community as well. Because people have, it's a young man named Aubrey Williams. He's not on here today. And he talked about how he learned black history and how that changed his life. It took him from being a thug to being an activist organizer now, because he thought he was these negative images that he's seen on TV. He thought he was these negative images. And those are the biggest things when it comes to young black men. If you just swamped with negative images, you're going to end up perpetuating that because that's what you see. So me learning black history and what black people have done has changed me in the same way it's changed Aubrey. It's made all the difference in my life. And what's going on within our culture is what I call ghetto and black. And when I'm around the black elite, they actually believe that they're more black, which is always positive, that they're more black because they know more black history. And I want little Pookie and those little kids in the juvenile justice system, I want them to know a whole lot more black history than they've been exposed to.
Thanks, Richard. You have a gift of articulating things very clearly. I appreciate that. We've got several people on the call that are part of organizations that are working in some of these spaces. Nikki, Nikki's with True Up. Would you mind introducing yourself, Nikki, and sharing some about the work that you do and some of the challenges you see?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to see everyone. And thank you for hosting this. I think it's such an important conversation as well. I work with young people that have a foster care experience and those organizations who support those young people. And then I work in the community with young people who are just in vulnerable situations. And so some of the things I've seen within my work, particularly in working with, Black males, has been, I think as LaPierre said well, this sense of fear, this sense of not knowing, and being educated, as Richard spoke to, about Black culture, and this I think it was said earlier, this kind of entitlement of others being better, and just kind of carrying this every day, all day. And so this new term for me of racial trauma, because I heard trauma also spoken about earlier, is real. And I think, the more you can relate with someone, hopefully the more you see that they're similar to you in a lot of ways. And it takes away some of those stereotypes and fears, that may be present. But, I have a lot of just concern, for our Black males in the city and around the country. Because of what we see happening, on TV, and because of what we don't see and what we know that happens in our communities. It's not fair, and it's, something extra that our Black men have to carry that they shouldn't have to. And it's not even real. It's not even true. So it is these stereotypes. They bleed, they hurt, they cry like anyone else, but, it's not always seen that way. So I'm really happy that you've set this platform today, and I'm so happy that the men here have spoken up about their experiences so we can all learn. And I just think we need to embrace, our Black men and love them and care for them and be compassionate and understand them and listen to them and treasure them and, all those type of things. I think that scenario, I love when someone said we need to unlearn. It's not the exact words, but we need to kind of unlearn some things. But that's what's deserved of anybody. And certainly we need to, hold our Black men up high everywhere in this community and everywhere. So the pride, everything that everyone's spoken about, the pride that's needed, accountability. I think that our school system should teach, more Black history and such. That's where our tax dollars go. That's an expectation. We shouldn't need separate schools of color for men or boys or girls or anyone, for that to be taught. That should be embedded, as someone said, in our education system. So thank you for the opportunity to speak for a moment. I just want to hear from our Black men, but I appreciate you giving me a moment to share.
And thank you, Nikki, for the work that you're doing. I would like to hear what's showing up for other Black men that haven't been in on the conversation. Feel free to just unmute yourself and, what's showing up for you? What do you want to echo? What do you want to add to? Levon, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Levon.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Levon Clark. I'm the CEO and founder of Prominent Youth of America. We work with youth and youth that are interested in music. We teach them about copyrights, publishing, music licensing, and sync, and things like that. As my personal experiences as a Black man has been mostly observational per se. And when she just spoke on racial trauma, I think understanding the variations of racial trauma really need to be clarified and understood and spoke on behalf of, because it is in every single thing that we see. Like if you take in, for instance, racial equity inclusion from JCPS, which is them talking about, okay, these are the disparaging elements that we have located and the practices that have been done that are disparaging to minorities. So these type of things are everywhere. So as a black man, you like, if I go into a classroom, everybody can say, okay, we get the stereotype that we're stupid or something like that. So if you go to court, you get the stereotype that you're a drug dealer or a thug. Or it's so many circumstances or situations that we are entering into that our race dictates exactly how we have to go about that situation or handling that situation. And a lot of times these situations may be emotional, so you may get an emotional response from people, but it may not be articulate where they can express exactly or transparently what exactly they're going through. They're just complaining about the anxiety that they're dealing with at the emotion, the anxiety that they're dealing with at that time. A lot of times this gets labeled disorderly or something like that, where the problems never get rectified. You automatically get labeled as disorderly or unruly or whatever and slid to the side. So these are the things that we always have to deal with no matter where we are penetrating into society. These are one of the things that we face. We are always taught in regards to dealing with law enforcement. We have like issues as far as like hatred and fear, or we have symptoms of fight or flight. In every single situation that we go through, these are the first emotions that we have to get through before we get to solving any problem, or actually identifying the problem to articulate the problem to even solve the problem. Like, again, that, like she said, I've never heard the expression of racial trauma, but racial trauma sums up what I'm personally speaking on behalf of right now, and the variations and the stigma and how far that penetrates our culture is very, very, very deep. And you feel unheard. So those that feel unheard automatically turn into rebel. So when they're in the rebellious mode, they're not trying to hear anything that's sane or anything that's conforming or anything that's right, because those goals are to them unreachable or unfathomable because of, like everybody else has been saying, what they immediately see around them, you know, the society that they see around them, the mentors they have that directly affect them, or they mentors or report. A lot of them don't have those different elements to where they can grow and develop. So they use music, or they use the different people that they see in society as far as a gauge to grow. But it has to be more collaborative efforts like these that are perpetuated to, and this is what I want to say too. When we was growing up, we had a gang era, but it wasn't necessarily the Crips and Bloods. This is pre-Crips and Bloods. So pre-Crips and Bloods, we had gangs in every single neighborhood. So when the Crips and Bloods comes, it pretty much colludes to these different sectors. And this repeated cycle has been going over and over again for decades. We'll have how many stop the violence movements have we had, you know what I'm saying, in the last 3 decades? You know, like this type of thing is always done because nobody actually solves the initial problem. We got social justice issues that we're facing right now for the simple reason we haven't faced the real issues or the problems. We have majority of people complaining about them, but people may complain but not even know what lane to go through to get their complaints heard, or what level or platform that needs to be opened up to speak their man where somebody will actually do something about it. So again, that's where us as adults have to step up and create collaborative efforts for ourselves as ones to educate ourselves about different things that's going on, but also be a solid resource to transcend everything we learn back down to the younger adults and definitely our youth, because the lanes that they're following now is because things have not been done the right way up until said point. It's been Band-Aids put on everything, ideas. Like, again, I'll go back to when I was younger. We had programs like Black Achievers, Whitney M. Scholars, Build, all kind of different programs for the youth to be involved in. And then when the funding dries up, all those programs dries up. So then we're in a situation where we have a plethora of programs right now, but there's no awareness about these programs. So every last one of us is independent programmers. I go out into the community and find youth to be participants in our program. But like I said, back when I was younger, youth, these programs were allowed to come into the school and do presentations to bring kids into those programs. And that's the thing that needs to be done right now as far as like redeveloping our youth before they become young adults. We need to give them skill sets and principles that they can rely upon during those ages. When they go into young adults, they can make better decisions.
And Levon, before I want to say, if you're joining us on Facebook Live, you're welcome to put a a comment or a question in the chat box. And those of you that are on Zoom, also would love for you all to jump in and ask a question, unmute yourself. Levon, can you go back to sharing the organization that you're with and how we can get more information about what you do?
My organization is called Prominent Youth of America Incorporated. Our website is www.pyoa.org. We're on Facebook at Prominent Youth Incorporated. We work with youth that are interested in the music and entertainment business. We have a program called the Arts of Music, Education, and Entertainment. We teach youth about copyrights, publishing, songwriting, how to record, every single element that they need in order to produce their creative works, publish their creative works, and monetize their creative work.
Thank you for doing that good work, Levon. We'll hope to stay in touch. And after this is over, if you could put that, I don't know if you have the capacity to put that in the chat box, but also include it on our Facebook page with your website and information. Thank you.
Thank you.
So are there any questions from those that are on Zoom for our panelists, or those that are in the call? Would love to honor your questions that you may have. If not, I'd like to, yeah, David, did you unmute? You have something to join in the conversation? Feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Reverend David Thomas. I am Associate Pastor of Greater New Beginnings Christian Church, which is located in the California community in the West End. And so I'm 43, and I done did myself over 12 and a half years in prison and in jails. In and out. And my experience concerning with just personally with the cycle that I was perpetuated was is that as a young Black male, I felt like that, you know, people really didn't care. So I just found myself just being wild, reckless, and out of control. And so I would say with young Black males today, they don't care about how much you know, but about how much you care. How are you going to really care about them with trying to invest in their life? I believe there's a total disconnect between our millennials and the baby boomer generation. As far as the baby boomers not really have been investing and pouring into our millennials with their wisdom, their knowledge, their understanding, and really trying to help, you know, and walk beside and invest. And I think, you know, the reason why is because it can get dangerous and it doesn't look, you know, and how it may not look safe because of what we're dealing with our millennials and this generation. But yet in the same instance, it's the next generation, whether you like it or not. And so we must care. If you're a leader in your community and if you are someone who has a prominent title that people are following, you have an obligation. You are required to do so, would pass it on to the next generation. That's a given. It comes with the territory of what you've been called to do. But yet in the same instance, we have a lot of those who have titles in prominent positions and that are influencers and persuaders are just too self-centered and not other-centered more. And so this is what we're dealing with our young Black males, because, you know, I dealt with it when I was younger in my teens. You know, the older people, you know, it was a disconnect, you know, and they didn't want to spend the time and energy and effort to really try to mentor and coach properly, you know. So when we talk about drama in our communities, in our household, because most time when you talk about drama, what's taking place is because of a lot of people have experienced childhood trauma, and you got to be able to deal with that stuff, you know, because if you don't face it, you can't fix it. So you gotta face it. But yet in the same instance, when people see this, whoever that may be, and they see, you know, the behavior, the conduct, but yet ignored and avoided, then how true change is going to take place with individuals. So we just have to have a true passion for people, and really care about people, you know, and not just our household, but outside of our household as well. So when we talk about young Black males, I know that was my issue coming up, you know. I mean, I just felt, you know, didn't nobody care for me. I felt like didn't nobody want to invest their time in me. Didn't nobody, you know, so I felt hopeless and helpless. And so when you have that mentality and that thought process, majority of the time you're gonna get reckless. You're gonna be wild. And that's what I did. You know, I ran around with 2 or 3 guns all the time. People shooting at me, I'm shooting at them. Selling drugs, it didn't matter. And I would say through that whole destructive cycle and seasons of my life, when I was lost, I would say I only had probably 1 or 2 people that tried to give me any type of advice to go in a different direction. So we talk about our young Black males, we need more people that's gonna step up and begin to really pour into our young people and walk beside them and invest in them. And it takes time, it takes energy, it takes effort, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Other than that, we're gonna keep on seeing what we're seeing, and it's gonna keep getting worse. So we can't get, I love these type of panels, I love these types of, talks, but we can't talk about it, we gotta be about it. We gotta be about it. We gotta get involved. We gotta get involved.
Thank you, David. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I want to come back, Imran and Eltwan LaFerry. Y'all, where are you guys? What's showing up for you? What's emerging? What are your thoughts? What are you hearing? What do you want to echo? What do you want to add?
There's a lot for me, you know. So you got Reverend talking about the gifts that young people have, and we're talking about youth and education and receiving the right education, which is Black education, and it's just it's a lot of this discussion, but we do have to pay attention to the Black trauma piece. That is extremely vital. I think I was a part of the Thrive Fellowship, which was put together for young Black men working through Cities United for our mayor's office over the last 2 years. The program is currently still in continuance. And I think overall it provides the right skills and education for a young Black man, which can be easily provided into an educational curriculum. Also, I feel like there's just a lot of work that we could do, a lot of connecting that we can do as a community here in the city. I mean, I've been into the right spaces, and I've been exactly where I needed to be since I've been here. I'm not a native of Louisville, but I grew up in the system of Kentucky, the foster care system. So that's been difficult, especially being a young Black man, and being separated away from family and continuously moving around and meeting new people. And it's gonna give a young man some anxiety and some self-doubt and some tearing down, but there's a lot of that I have to empower. I've learned that I have to empower myself as a young Black man. And I'm speaking to LeVron more right here too. I want you to understand that my experiences have given me the will to work for what I need and what I want, because that's what life has shown me, that I need to do that. And I can't trust anyone else to do that but myself. And this is not me. I don't want anyone to be offended, and I love the support that is being given. This conversation especially gives room, but a lot of young Black men are thinking very similar to I am, and I want people to understand that there's just this will and this drive and this power that we do have, and we do need to be invested in, and we do have dreams and we do have visions that no longer need to be torn down because they've been torn down for years, and I refuse to allow that to continue to happen to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Elton. And even though you've only been here for a few years, you're one of us. We got you. You're a Louisvillian. You belong. Thank you for being here. Imran, what are you hearing? What are you thinking? I know you're always thinking something.
No, I mean, I was really just thinking that this is a good conversation, and I'm glad that you invited me because I don't ever get to talk to this, I would say, perspective of people, or hear from this perspective of people. And I think I'm probably the youngest person in this group, which makes it interesting to hear, you know, my elders talk about these things going on in Louisville. And from that, I would say my perspective is very unique. So, I mean, from the youth standpoint, from somebody who's young, I like to think that generationally, we've overcome a lot of our differences socially, and more of it right now is systematic and capitalist racism, institutional racism that we would have to overcome. Some solutions to that problem, or some solutions to stereotyping, would be just not being set in your thoughts and being open to things changing, because like that's where stereotypes come from. Thinking that something is the way it is in your mind, instead of thinking that it is ever changing, instead of thinking that it can be anything. And the capitalist institutional racism, I would say we either need better checks to capitalism, or, you know, I'm down for another revolution. We'll see what happens.
Thanks, Imran. Thanks for being on. So we've just got about 12 minutes left, and I always like to do a checkout and to allow anybody on Zoom that wants to check out, which means you only have like 15 to 20 seconds to check out. But you know, checkout is a chance for us to share something that was really meaningful or insightful. What was a moment where you heard something? What did you learn? Where did you connect? Where did you light up? So I want to give anybody who wants to a chance to check out. And let me invite those who identify as white to check out first, and we'll leave some of the voices, the people of color, for last. So anybody on the Zoom call that's white want to check out and say anything in just about 15, 20, 30 seconds. But feel free to unmute yourself and share something that was meaningful or insightful. I won't call out any names because I don't know if you want to check out, but Fran, go ahead. Thanks.
Well, I want to thank everybody who's participated in sharing what you said. I did have a question that I had posted, and I'll still throw this out. How or why did those of you who agreed to participate on this panel decide that you wanted to, and what, if anything?
You did there, Fran. We didn't hear the very last part of that question. You're still muted. No.
I can hear her, Judd.
I'm sorry. It was my speaker that went bad. So please go ahead and answer.
Okay. Well, again, what, if anything, did those of you who were on the panel want to have happen, hope to have happen as a result of it? And I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, thanks. And again, we don't have a whole lot of time but if anybody wants to take a shot at that question, feel free.
Just like when the young men said, "Hey, I didn't know that these people was out here doing this in the community." That's what I wanted to get from when it comes to the younger men. I wanted them to know that it's some of their elders. We just a little bit older, but we out here. We trying our best. We're giving it everything we got to create a better environment for them, and also when it comes to to the people that's not of color. Just to really bridge that gap and let you all know that, hey, we have people out in the community that's dedicating their lives to fixing some of these challenges. And I'm glad that people came out here and shared their stories and our experiences. And it's just been overwhelming to me because it's not too many dialogues like this that's going on in the city. But now people are starting to have them. And I have to say, I put this one up there with the best.
Thanks, Richard. Who else would like to check out?
I just want to say thanks, and I'm excited. I just love this energy. I love learning more and being involved and trying to figure out how I can help.
Thanks, Howard.
I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much for who you are and for what you do. I guess what I've heard is that we're dealing with a multi-layered moment in society, that there's issues to be dealt with on the intrapersonal level, on the interpersonal and the relationship level, on the institutional and systems level, and on the cultural level. And it's like we can't deal with just one or two of them. We're going to have to deal with all of them. And we're going to have to get to the place where we can't help just a few of us. We have to help all of us in order for things to be better. Thanks.
Thanks, Howard. Greg,
Hello,
you want to check out?
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Nicholas. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hello, this is Nicholas Marshall. Sorry, I've been only listening at this time, but I really appreciate all the stories the gentleman shared. As a person that came from a struggle through state's care, being the foster system, all the things and stories resonate with me. And I just wanted to say, I do recognize a couple of people in the chat from the Compassionate Louisville workshops about a year ago. So I just wanted to say hello to you guys, and haven't seen you guys in a while.
Thanks, Nicholas. Good to have you on. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Greg. Please, yes.
I just wanted to say, maybe speaking about education, I just want to say this, and I realize that education is very, very important. It took me a long time to really learn that. You know, my mothers, my teachers, my coaches, everybody told me it. I never really took it serious until I got in prison. And I realized that how important education was, because by me already being a criminal with a record and no education, because when I went to prison, I had a 6th grade education. So I realized right then and there how important education was. And like I said, when I was in prison, I got my GED, and I went on to get vocational trades and got 2 college degrees while I was in there. And even though we know that racism, and we know that stereotypes, and we know that all this stuff goes on in schools, but at the same time, you have to be responsible for yourself, and you have to be responsible for your action. And you have to realize that I realized that when I was in school, that I was my worst enemy. I'm the one that held Gregory back. And that's just the reality of it, and that's just the truth of it. And when I got in prison, I didn't even realize that I was even smart enough to go to college. I didn't even think that I could even pass to make it out of high school. But when I put my mind together, decided to do something besides criminal activity and learn how to sell drugs and do everything wrong, and I started putting my mind, because like that's the truth, saying the mind is a terrible thing to waste, and it really is. And when I really put my mind to it, I was smarter than what I really thought I was. And I never in my life, and I tell this story to young men, I never ever took algebra in my life. The whole time I went to school, I never had algebra. And when I was in prison and I took algebra, and when I first time I ever took it, I scored an A-. And that's because I put my mind to use for some better than criminal activity. And that's just the truth of it. Education is very important. We need to instill this in these young men, and we need to instill this in these young ladies that's in school, that you're smarter than what you really think you are. All you got to do is put your mind to it. Can't nobody hold you back. You won't hold yourself back. You the one that holds yourself back when you don't go in there and you don't learn what the teachers is teaching, and you want to be distracted and you want to distract other people from learning. And I know this because I was a kid, and I used to do that, throw erasers in class, distract everybody else because I wasn't smart enough to learn, so I did everything else to erupt the class and to erupt other people so that they wouldn't get an education because I didn't want one. But now I see the whole picture and I see the whole aspect of it. And I just wanted to put that out there because I realized that I'm the one that held Gregory back. But now, you know, when I went to prison, and it paid off for me, just like the job that I got right now today. You know, people just can't believe that I work for the murder. But I mean, it paid off for me. You know, I went to prison, got my education, got out, and did what I did. Like they say, I didn't just talk that talk, I walked that walk.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for the story.
Hi, I wanted to ask, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Nikki.
I wanted to ask, because I think I may have heard someone say that there aren't always a lot of platforms like this, you know, for Black men to be heard and to be understood. And I wanted to ask anyone, like, would it be helpful to continue these type of platforms and just kind of, I just wanted to learn a little bit more about if I heard that correctly, what can we do to, you know, continue to support these type of platforms and the collaborations of so many of the groups coming together. I learned about so many groups today that I just don't know about, and I don't know why I don't know about them. So I just wanted to get some advice, really, and just some what you all think about that.
Yeah, that's a help. That would be helpful. Are these platforms helpful? How could they be more helpful? How could we do more of them? What's the need there? Any insight on that would be great. In a very short time. So again, feel free to unmute yourself.
What about, you know, we often have these conversations and talk about next steps and plans of actions. How about a conversation to talk about next steps? What are tangible next steps? We can use the SMART goals to create this strategic plan or whatever. Let's just come together and begin the conversation about doing something. You know, there's a process, but at least start having these conversations. Even continuing these conversations is a great start. There's, again, a lot of these conversations going on, but even if we have another one, I don't think that'll hurt the purpose, you know. One step at a time is the thinking here.
Good.
But let's at least talk about, you know, a planned meeting or whatever.
Good, thank you, Elton.
Greg, mute yourself.
Anybody else want to jump in there? We got about 1 minute left, so any kind of checkout questions or any kind of checkout comments would be helpful.
Yeah, I would.
Please.
I would say that word organ. And in the inside of a body, you need all of the you need all of the organs to work. Your organ might be the liver. Somebody else's organization might be you know, just stuff, you know,
you're breaking up.
The kidney, you know, your organization is, we need it for the body to function. So bring your organization, bring our organizations together. Just like how organs are used in the body. You got all organs have to work together in order for the body to function. So bring your organization, all of our organizations.
Thank you, William. I think we were having some trouble there, breaking up a little bit, but thank you.
Together
I
to
appreciate
work. None of our organizations should not be a competition. They should all work together. So this is what I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it is time for us to go. This really has been really insightful. I want to give a deep bow to Richard and Nikki for helping pull it together. But, you know, the rest of you that just kind of showed up to add your story and your opinions, your thoughts, your perspectives, and your ideas about how we can go forward. I'm really deeply grateful for that. And this is our vision of how we can move forward as a community, is taking time to hear each other's stories and ask each other questions and have places where we can see each other and where we can listen to each other. So thanks for the vulnerability. I realize that you telling your story and us listening puts you in a more vulnerable place. And so I do honor that place, and your vulnerability has been very meaningful. And for the rest of you that joined us on Zoom, be looking for more opportunities like this. So Richard and Nikki and the rest of you, if we want to host more platforms or have platforms around topics or whatever, then let's do it, right? We're the ones that need to create them. Thank you all for joining us on Facebook as well. We had a great group there, and we'll add some of on the Facebook, we'll add some of the names and the organizations and ways you can get in touch with them on the Facebook, so you can go back and look at those and feel free to make connections with them. Thank you all. Blessings. You're welcome to unmute yourself and do our Brady Bunch goodbye. So everybody can say goodbye.
Lots of love to you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate you all. Keep going. We need you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Imran, William.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Elton, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Elton, thank you. Greg, thank you for your words and your story.
Yes. Thank you as well.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you.